powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, it's Football at 4.
Josh Hennick filling for Mike Gill on a happy hour Friday here on 97.3 ESPN. And of course, at 4 o'clock, we got to talk football. We are less than a week. We're days away from the return of Eagles training camp. And we got a little reunion for the Birds to talk about with NFL insider Adam Caplan here for a Friday edition of Football at 4 here on 97.3 ESPN. Adam, welcome back in. How you doing today?
Josh, I'm good. Yeah. So Dennis Kelly, this is a crazy story. So I'm going to say maybe early August, late July of 2016, I was at Titans camp in Nashville. And I'm talking to someone on their personnel staff. I'm like, why is Dorial Green-Beckham running on the fourth team? And they're like, because he doesn't know what he's doing. I'm like, really? He's a pretty talented guy, second-round pick. Now, what I learned, Josh, is that, and this wound up being the case, that the GM then, John Robinson, didn't draft him. He was drafted by another regime, and that had something to do with why they moved him. And 1 hour later, he was traded. It was crazy. I mean, he was traded. I mean, it's rare that this happens while you're there, training camp, it happens. And I'm not going to lie, I thought the Eagles stole him. Now, I had that intel that he wasn't doing well, but come on, the guy's a second-round pick for Dennis Kelly is a mauling offensive lineman. And look, I was wrong. I mean, I was surprised that Kelly turned out to be a good starter. In fact, talking to the Titans over the years, he plays right and left tackle. Now, be careful. He has to pass the physical. I'm told he's had some injury problems over the years, shoulder, knee, maybe some other stuff. So he's got to make the team. He's not guaranteed anything. But as we said on our show that dropped Thursday morning, Josh, they had to do something for a veteran offensive tackle. They really didn't have a choice. It was one real big issue on the roster.
So for Kelly, if he passes the physical, if everything goes well on that front, Adam, do you foresee him being a front runner then to potentially make the 53, or do you still think he has to compete with some people?
If he's healthy, now, he's older now. He's clearly on the back nine of his career. Maybe he's got 1 or 2 years left in him. I get it. Howie Roseman, the GM, drafted him back in many years ago. In fact, it was under Chip Kelly. In fact, I remember talking to the Eagles then about Kelly, this guy, Dennis Kelly. His brother, Tim, by the way, is the offense coordinator for the Titans. It's kind of interesting. But, yeah, he would make it. He would be their top swing tackle because he can do it. Now, I'm also told, Josh, he's way better at right tackle than left. He's a power mauling blocker. He doesn't have great athleticism, but he's played both. And if you really needed him to, he could play guard if you needed him to. But he's a mauling right tackle. Now, yes, you could play him at left tackle. Then the question would be, when you really look at it, well, if Dennis Kelly's better at right tackle, who would be the left if Mailata couldn't play? That would be, they'd have to get through that. Dennis Kelly, again, if he makes the team, probably would be that guy.
Well, we got training camp just days away, Adam. So Eagles, a little extra move before there. Teams are, getting to the point where we're going to have, the Jets are already at camp, for goodness sake, but the Eagles are coming up on Tuesday. And Adam, your top training camp questions and issues heading into training camp. Let's start with the position behind the offensive line, Adam. Running back position and roles. There's a lot of bodies this year. DeAndre Swift, Rashad Penny, Boston Scott is back. So for you, Adam, is there a clear starter or is this a running back by committee? All
right. So, yeah, this was the subject of yesterday's show. Is that one of the top 10 issues for this? You could call them storylines, but it's really issues. Or that's the deal. It's one of the top 10 issues facing this team, and everybody could have their own ranking. In fact, we saw some comments on social media. Some from our listeners had some really good points that we didn't talk about, like the coaching, which we'll get in more in a Monday show. But yeah, running back. No, there's no clear starter. Now, I had said on Thursday's show that I believe it's going to be Rashad Penny. Now, understand. It's going to be a committee. You mentioned that in passing. It's going to be a committee. Now, the committee could have various facets. One guy will be the first guy in most games or have the first series, but it turns out to be a rotation. The top 3 guys in the rotation as of now will be Swift, Penny, and Gainwell. We know Boston Scott is making the most money of all the running backs, which Doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but okay, they like him. He's still back, and he's the most tenured back there. It's how are they gonna get that rotation going? They'll figure that out in training camp. Coaches always have an idea, but they let it play out in training camp. The primary first and second down back to me should be Penny. Now, it could be Penny gets 10 carries a game. DeAndre Swift gets 6 to 8. Kenny Gainwell gets 3 to 5. Then we know Gainwell and Swift will be their primary passing down backs. Then what they're going to have to figure out, Kenny Gainwell was their 4-minute back and 2-minute back per half, per the first half and second half. But DeAndre Swift could do that. Just Gainwell's got a little bit more juice. So they'll have to figure that out in training camp. And then Trey Sermon's sort of the X factor. Can he not only make the team, can he push Penny to take carries away in first and second down? They'll figure that out in training camp.
Of the group that we're talking about, who is arguably the best pass blocker of the group? Because we know that in the past, the third down guy many times has to be involved in the pass blocking.
Yeah, good. None of them are really good. Boston Scott's not bad at it. He's improved. None of them are what we call really good. That'll be a small facet of it. Swift obviously has had to do it a lot because he knows the term is scanning. He knows how to scan, but he's not the strongest guy in the world, and that's obviously part of it. They don't have what we call a really good pass blocking back. That's just the way it is. Gainwell's had to improve. Gainwell, he's had obviously issues in mental mistakes. He had a tough training camp. I was there in Berea, Ohio, when the Eagles were playing the Browns, or practicing with the Browns, and he more or less was thrown out of practice for a bit because he had mental errors. But as you know, as the second half of the season went, he became much more of a factor. And we had noted this. We noted this in 2021 when they drafted him. The coaching staff, they didn't make the call, but they had a lot of input. They love Kenny Gainwell for that draft, and they certainly like him. But it's not a great sign that they made the trade for DeAndre Swift.
Talk with NFL insider Adam Caplan on today's edition of Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast at InsideTheBirds.com. Adam joining us on the Elite Acura hotline. Adam, let's go to the guy who's going to be calling the plays for the running backs, Brian Johnson. He's been a coordinator in college, but this is his first opportunity in the NFL. What changes, or if any changes, will there be offensively for the Eagles? That's a
good question, Josh. Look, you're not going to change your scheme. You don't do that when you've run a very successful scheme and philosophy. They're a passing team. They'll run it when they look. With their run game, they know they could do it at any time. They do have an issue at right guard. That's definitely an issue. But it's going to be primarily passing offense. They all want that. Nick Sirianni wants that. Howie Roseman wants that. Jeffrey Lurie wants that. There are exceptions. The Green Bay game was a tremendous exception. One of the best running performances in team history. Why did they do it? Because it worked. They got off to an unbelievable start. Green Bay just couldn't do anything against the run. They did it. But more often than not, they're going to come out throwing. And that's not going to change. Now, the thing with Brian Johnson is he's never called plays at this level. He did it at college. It's much different. But the thing is, he knows the personnel. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, obviously. Zacchaeus is new. He'll compete against Watkins for that slot job. He knows Dallas Goedert. Obviously very close to Jalen Hurts. And that's the one thing I'm looking for, because we know Hurts likes hard coaching. Sirianni gets on his case. I'm wondering if Brian Johnson, as the OC now, because this is what one of the many issues that caused the regression for Carson Wentz was lack of hard coaching after John T. Filippo left in particular. And and we know for a fact that Hurts wants to be coach hard. That's great. But is Brian Johnson willing to do that? And that's something we're keeping an eye on as we go forward here.
It's going to be very interesting to see what Johnson does. On the flip side of the field, another new coordinator, but for a different reason. Jonathan Gannon is now the head coach of the Cardinals, and now Sean Desai, who is a disciple of that Vic Fangio scheme.
Yep.
He's bringing his philosophy now to this defense.
Yeah, and he's going to run his version of it. And we've tried to warn people. The reason why Gannon didn't run exactly what Fangio did is because the disciples never run exactly the same. Because as one coaching source said to me 2 days ago, actually, I talked to someone who knows Sean, and we're going to have more on this on Mondays, actually on Mondays Inside the Bird Show exclusively for our people who listen to us, but they don't all run it the same. It's impossible. You don't have access to Vic's brain, so you can't run it exactly the same. But the one thing you know they're going to do is not blitz very much. That's the one thing that they all do. You don't blitz a lot. It's the timeliness of blitzing, Josh. That's what the scheme is all about.
Now, when you talk about the timing of it, I just want to ask you really quick about that because you said Desai's not Vic Fangio, but he is much closer to Vic
Yes,
than Gannon was. Is that maybe something people can keep an eye on to say, hey, what we've seen from Vic Fangio in the past, that is going to be a little closer, whereas Gannon, he held that time with Minnesota with the Zimmer scheme.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Jeff, because the one knock on Gannon, look, he did a very good job. Never what the fans think. I get the criticism. I agreed with him on one thing. The timing of blitzes sometimes you would question. And the one big knock on him, and we were told by a coaching source that reviewed Eagles tape from last season, that the one thing you could really knock Gannon was lack of pre and post snap disguise sometimes when he really needed it. But overall, the guy did a very good job. I mean, you can knock him sometimes and say, hey, he should have done this or that. That's fair because it's true. But overall, the guy did a good job. And Desai, you're right, Josh, that's a really astute point. Gannon's background was not in this scheme. But he and we know through Brandon Staley, who's a mutual friend, Brandon's very close to Gannon, and Staley's very close to Vic. So they got those guys together. And, Vic was a consultant for the Eagles. And we're going to have more on that, exactly what he was doing for Monday mornings Inside the Bird Show. So it's going to be interesting, Josh, because, again, you don't run it the same way. And Desai, though, he ran Fangio in 21. And John DiFilippo told us on our show, because he coached with Sean for 2 years, and he's known Sean, by the way, when they were postgraduate coaches at Boston College when John's dad was the athletic director for Boston College. He said Sean has worked with a lot of coaches, and he has he'll bring a lot to the table. But you saw what Robert Quinn did in that scheme. He had, 18 sacks? He was pretty good.
Sean Desai, new defensive coordinator.
Yep.
Doesn't mean the Eagle fans will like him anymore. It just means he's the new defensive coordinator.
Sure.
Adam, one of the questions I've been asked by a lot of Eagle fans this offseason that we're going to get into is the right guard position. No more Isaac Seumalo. So what are the legitimate, real concerns about right guard? Because we know you got a Hall of Famer, future Hall of Famer at center. You got one of the best right tackle, the best right tackle in the NFL on each side of right guard. But who is going to play right guard?
Yeah, it's completely wide open. We're told it's even. The thing with Tyler Steens is he's going to have to learn the techniques of playing inside. That's a big ask. I get that he's clearly going to be the long-term starting right guard. But for this season, and let's go to training camp, when the Eagles report Tuesday and the first practice is Wednesday, and I know that you can't get overly physical because it's the acclimation period, but it's all about technique. And we're told he's not there yet with the technique. He's got a long way to go, but that's to be expected. It's not a big deal. But it becomes a big deal in 3 weeks. If he doesn't have it by mid-August, Josh, and the real competition starts right when the acclimation period's over next week. Actually, the week after, the week of first week of August. Because remember now, Cam Jurgens now is in a second year in the system, his second year in the techniques. I know he's very raw, and he needs to, he's still only, this will be his fourth or fifth year playing offensive line in his life. So he's no given, but he does have a little bit of leg up in terms of learning the hand users and techniques.
Any concerns about Jurgens' size, considering that he has only been, as you mentioned, an offensive lineman for so long? Yeah,
and Josh, you really, just to add to that, he can only put on so much weight, and Steen's a bigger guy. But Steen also does not have very long arms. That's why he's playing inside. Let's not forget that. Well, that's a good thing. Well, I'm looking forward to when they're allowed to get very physical, which is the second week of training camp, seeing how they do that. That's one of the many things we'll be looking for.
Staying on the offensive side of the ball, slot receiver. Who on earth is going to play the slot? And Adam, how much will we even see the slot this year?
Yeah, this won't take very long. Every team plays slot receiver. Also, you have to do that. But, man, Quez Watkins was so out of place as a slot. if Zacchaeus doesn't win this, Olamide Zacchaeus, if he doesn't win it, I'd be shocked. Not surprised, shocked. Why? Because Zacchaeus has played inside before. He's perfect for it. Now, I know he can run a little bit. You could play him as a Z receiver, which is the move receiver of the two outside receivers. But he's played the slot. He's got excellent hands. He didn't have great hands in college, but he has really good hands now, really drops passes. Watkins was miscast inside, and he needs to play more outside this season.
Is there an opportunity maybe where you could play Watkins on the outside at all and maybe every once in a while kick like Devonta Smith into the slot? Sure,
and Devonta's line up inside. Yeah, he could do that. He's a Z receiver. A.J. Brown's their X receiver, which is a single side receiver. Smith is the move receiver anyway. Yeah, absolutely. You'll see that. And then, as we mentioned on the show that dropped Thursday morning, Britton Covey, if he's on the team this year as the punt returner, which is probably going to happen. He also, now I know he didn't do very well in the slot in training camp, but second year, maybe he's more comfortable. And let's see. Let's see if he contributes to that position.
I guarantee you, if Devin Allen's there again, every Eagle fan is going to be chanting for him to make the roster.
Yeah, he's a long shot. Yeah, him not being with the team, he's coming. He has an injury too. Him not being able, he was doing his track stuff. Because we were told, and we talked about this to close last season, one thing the Eagles want to do is look at Devin Allen as a receiver, not so much as a kick returner, because very few kicks get returned. And as we noted exclusively on our show on Thursday, Rashad Penny is probably going to return kicks in training camp along with Scott, maybe Kenny Gainwell, and obviously Allen. We'll see what happens here. So, by the way, Rashad Penny, Josh, over 30 yards per kickoff return in college, and it's not like he only kicked a few. He kicked a lot. He returned a lot. He returned a lot in college at San Diego State. So we'll see what happens there.
If I remember correctly, he started as a kick and punt returner because Donald Humphrey was ahead of him in the depth chart of running.
Is that right? I didn't know that. Yeah, Donald Humphrey. Oh, man, there's a name. Wow. Forgot about him. What a reach. That boy, they missed on that one.
Sorry to bring back the bad memories there for everybody else.
He was small and he played small, as one coaching source said was with him then. Boy, he you know how Darren Sproles was small, same school, but no, not same school, but same type of player. Darren Sproles was small, but he played big, and that kid at Humphrey was small and he played small.
Yeah, well, Sproles is also thick. Sproles had
good point.
And a thick lower body.
And he's in scouting with the Eagles, by the way.
Is he really?
Mm-hmm.
Man, that's cool.
Yep.
Adam, before I let you go, the final for today's training camp questions issues conversation is might arguably the biggest question of weakness with the Eagles. Who on earth is going to be the punter? I mean, the punter issue became a real problem at the end of last season, and then we saw what happened in the biggest game of the year in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, so Brett Kern, he had what's called a dead leg. It's what coaches call them, the special teams coaches, and he just saw, hey, it didn't work out. They didn't know that. Nobody knew that, and he just it unfortunately didn't work. And Sipos was coming off that injury, significant ankle sprain. So we're told it's wide open between Sipos and Ty Zentner, as an undrafted free agent out of Kansas State. And Zentner's a little bit bigger physically. And by the way, he was a kicker and a punter in college. Not that Jake Elliott's the guy. He's one of the top 10, top 5 kickers in the NFL. He's really good after struggling a little bit years ago. So it's wide open. And look, field position, I'm not worried about like their return game. They'll figure that out. This is a big issue. Their punting game was so bad last season, Josh, that they got to get this thing straightened out. Field position matters, and they did not do well enough in the field position game with these punters last season.
Is there any chance that if the guys who are in camp now don't work out, Adam, they can look outside the organization?
Of course. I mean, that says any position, but they're not looking to do that. We were told they're not interested right now in Matt Ariza. Obviously, about his situation, but it's been cleared up, his legal situation. But they're not going that direction or any other one right now. They're looking at Sipos and Zentner, and they'll see what happens. But that's it. I mean, this is a really good roster. I don't know that it's a 14-3 roster. Probably is not. In fact, I'd be shocked if it did. They're down a minimum of 7 starters from last season. But they're still relatively young. This is a very good roster. We're going to talk more about the coaching, Josh, on Football at 4 on Monday, because they've had a lot of coaching defections, Josh. This is a concern a little bit because you've got a lot of new faces and new places, and you got to see how these things work out.
He's NFL insider Adam Caplan, the Inside the Birds podcast. Like, subscribe, download, give it the 5-star review. Get ready for Monday's pod, The Drop. And of course, you can follow Adam on Twitter at Caplan NFL. Adam, great stuff today.
All right, thank you.